Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank the viewers for tuning in to our 2019 candidate interview series. We are interviewing for City Council in Tampa. At the Chamber, we focus on policy, not politics, and while we do not endorse candidates, we think that it's important to make sure that we get the candidates in front of the business community to answer some important questions. Today, we're fortunate to have John Godwin. He's running for City Council District 2. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you.
Absolutely. So we're just under 6 weeks away from Election Day. We're in the final stretch. What's the message that you're trying to deliver to voters before they head to the polls?
Really, at the core of it, it's a message of love and a message of intellectual problem solving. I think that it's a really unique combination of the two that we can bring to Tampa City Council to say, here's how we can help everybody out in our city and in real tangible ways, not just campaign promises, but real plans to accomplish this.
Great. Workforce housing, some consider it a borderline crisis. There's certainly a need for more affordable housing in Tampa. What specific policies or zoning changes would you consider or try to implement to address this need?
This honestly is routinely my favorite question to answer, because I think that too frequently our city council has overlooked its role as a zoning board. And it's one of our greatest strengths is how we can adjust zoning. And there's a couple of things that I'd like to do. I'd like to really upzone a lot of the areas surrounding downtown. And then I'd like to reformat our density bonus system in the city. So traditionally, any lot, any property has a certain level of density that you can build on it. You can be approved to build extra density on that lot if you meet 3 out of 10 criteria. The problem with that criteria is it's widely disparate in how easy it is to accomplish the different things. So affordable housing is one of those items, but it's much harder to accomplish that than some of the other items. If we reformat how we do this density bonus system and do a points-based system rather than 3 out of 10 system, we can elevate the prioritization of affordable housing and really get more of it into our city. But the other thing that we can do is really encourage more development, a greater housing supply in our city. And we can do that by looking at investment properties and encouraging these landlords, these investment property owners, to put those on the market by introducing more codes, more ordinances for upkeep and maintenance of these properties, so that it makes it where the landlords, the owners, have to put that on the market. So it opens up all this additional real estate to be commercially beneficial to our city.
Great. I want to chat about the budget. One could argue that essentially one of the biggest responsibilities of City Council and obviously working with the mayor is the budget process. We're hearing from state economists and budget leaders at the state level that there could potentially be a dip in the economy in a couple of years. If elected, that would be under your tenure, obviously. How would you balance that through the budget process? Would you look at certain cuts? Would there be tax increases? How would you manage that?
Honestly, right now, we can't cut our budget anymore. We have been cutting our budget routinely since the 2008-2009 housing crisis, and our staffing is too short. If you look at our permitting department is now taking weeks to turn around permitting approval, and it's hurting our economy, how small some of these departments are. So we can't cut anymore. Luckily, we're one of the fastest growing cities in the United States, and this growth should be bringing in additional income to our city. So even with a pending possible economic downturn, this growth should help us weather that a little bit. But one other thing that we can look at is right now, our impact fees are considerably lower than similarly sized cities around Florida. We're smaller than St. Pete and smaller than Orlando. By significant amounts. And I've talked with a handful of developers in the area, and they're actually asking for us to do something about this, because they want to be able to have a permitting department that they can work with. They want to have a mass transportation system that they can work with. So I don't want to increase impact fees exponentially, but we can look at how we can work with developers to set something up so that we can have a beneficial arrangement to be able to cover some of these basic services.
Great. You mentioned the permitting department, and obviously with being one of the fastest growing cities, in the country, that is a crucial department. We're hearing more and more from members and folks in the community that it's becoming more and more difficult to obtain
Yes.
a permit. How can we balance a safe permitting process, but also an efficient one for businesses and residents in Tampa?
So there's a couple of different approaches that we can take. St. Pete has a really interesting approach where they have kind of a front office to their permitting, where if you're doing some small repair, some small addition on your home or private residence or private business, you can go in and basically get an approval on the fly if it's just something that needs a sign off. And what that means is that you're separating out these really substantive permitting requests from just the mundane day-to-day sign-offs. And that makes both processes be able to be carried out more quickly. So if we have a properly sized permitting department, we can go ahead and prioritize these things correctly. So I'd like to set that up. But then Osceola County has really taken an interesting approach to permitting as well, where they've really fully digitalized their system. So it's not expediting the process as far as getting rid of safety checks, but it's getting through the bureaucracy a lot quicker. The having to hand it off from one person to another, it really expedites that process. And too frequently in government, that is the biggest thing that slows things down. Once somebody is actually able to review it, it goes quickly. It's just getting it to that process that takes a while. So one of my real passions is introducing innovation, technical innovation into government. That's what I did with the Florida Department of Highway Safety. That's what I'm doing right now with the intelligence community. And that's what I think we can do in Tampa.
Great. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about home rule preemption.
Yes.
Local governments across the state continue to express frustration with this Tallahassee knows best mentality that they see coming from the state legislature. Do you agree that that is the case? And if so, how would you work to produce a strong working relationship with our delegation?
Yeah. Right now, the state of Florida's lack of faith and lack of empowerment of local governments has really been problematic. We've encountered that with any number of issues, whether it's transportation, education, gun control, and gun safety, or most locally, we were at threat, or most recently, we were at threat of local control over tree ordinances. And I honestly, I find that particularly concerning because I think that our tree canopy is one of the core parts of our identity, one of the core parts of our brand here in Tampa. And that does require a city government that pushes back against that and tries to highlight where its weaknesses are at the state level. But it requires those relationships to be maintained. I'm really proud of the relationships that I've established with our local delegation. I have a good relationship with Pinterest Driscoll, with Diane Hart, with Janet Cruz. And these relationships are ones that I would hope to be able to continue and use to help advocate for the needs of our city.
Great. Economic development and P3s, public-private partnerships, they continue to be an asset across the country for local governments. What opportunities do you see in the city of Tampa for us to utilize more P3s?
So I think the biggest opportunity that we have for P3s is with affordable housing. Right now, the city owns a lot of property throughout Tampa. And what we can be looking at is selling some of that property, selling it to developers, specifically with RFPs dedicated to developing affordable housing units or affordable housing complexes. And we have a number of affordable housing developers who are ready to do that from day one and who have been great partners with other cities. And we can really develop that more here. And actually, we've had some great opportunities here locally with Encore, which has been a great development and a real asset to our city. So I think affordable housing is one of those core areas that we can do increased P3 work. I'd also like to look into how we can do more green energy in our city. And I think that we have a real opportunity to be a green energy hub for the Southeast. And I think that there's different things like setting up solar panels on all of our municipal buildings, where we send that message of where we want to go and where we want our economy to really be to shift to.
Great. Transportation. Obviously, in November, a chamber-supported transportation referendum passed. injecting new dollars for transportation. And while we all have transportation lists of projects that we'd like to get done, my question for you is, what would be the one project out of the gates priority, first one you'd like to see?
I think that it's important to address how the city council can address transportation. And the biggest thing that we can do to address transportation is through city planning. And that's with high density mixed use development. If it's mixed use development, it means that where you work, play, and live are all in a walkable or bikeable area. So the biggest thing that we can do to transportation is to plan a better city. And that's through a comprehensive rezoning plan. It's through getting rid of parking minimums downtown. I think that that would enormously help our transportation system because it makes us less spread out. It allows everything to be a little bit closer, a little bit denser. But then also making sure that you have your grocery store within a walkable distance, that you have areas, your gym in a walkable distance, your favorite restaurants in a walkable distance. That is at the core of how our city council can help transportation by having a smarter designed city. And then also we can make sure that those high density mixed use developments are along mass transit routes.
So it sounds to me like your number one priority would be to ensure that those transportation dollars are supporting mixed use projects. Okay.
Well, and as far as the transportation dollars, if you go with the transportation first approach to city planning, you play whack-a-mole, where high density developments pop up all around the city and you're constantly reacting. Whereas if you take a zoning first approach to it, then you're able to take a really planned approach to transportation that matches the zoning. But then yes, with this incredible opportunity that we have with the transportation funds, that's where we can then use those funds to build better sidewalks in these walkable communities, where we can use those funds to do protected bike lanes, where we can use them to create smart lighting systems that move traffic through the city more efficiently.
Great. Leadership. Tell me what you see as the role of Tampa City Council, and if elected, your role specifically, how would that evolve over your term?
We've had an interesting mix of approaches to being a city council representative. Right now we have 7 members, and all 7 members kind of take a different approach. One approach that I've really respected and that I would like to emulate is Luis Vieira's approach, where I think he has taken a very micro and a very macro approach at the same time, where he finds really niche, small, specific Tampa issues like changing stations in municipal building restrooms and has those in all male restrooms throughout the city, which as a father of a young child, I very much appreciate. But then he also does things like advocate for the passage of Amendment 4, a statewide issue. And he's been able to use his soapbox very effectively while also not losing sight of what the core purpose of his job is. And I think that that's something that I would really like to be able to replicate. While at its core, I view myself as the zoning candidate, and that's what I want to do. And I don't mind as much being constantly in the background, being in the weeds, going through stacks of paper to try and find out solutions. And I don't feel the need to be in front making speeches constantly.
Okay. We've hit on a lot of different policy topics. Is there something that we didn't touch on that you would like to highlight that's a priority of yours, or is there something you want to reemphasize?
Yeah, I suppose the one thing that we didn't address is really inclusivity of Tampa. I think that when you look around the United States, the fastest growing cities are those that have really made a intentional, a proactive approach to inclusivity. And one of the things closest to my heart is inclusivity for persons with disabilities. Right now that we've seen that our sidewalks are not ADA compliant, our streetcar system is not ADA compliant. We don't have auditory crosswalk signals. We don't have ASL, American Sign Language translators, at a lot of our public events. And these are things where there's small, subtle signals about who is welcome in our city and who is not. And when you're looking at trying to recruit the next Fortune 500 company to relocate to Tampa, what they want is to know that all of their employees are going to be safe and welcomed in this city, regardless of who they are, who they love, who they worship, or what their ability is. And I think that we can really make headway by putting inclusivity back at the center of our government. And I think Bob Buckhorn has done a great job at that with different things like autism awareness in our city. But I'd really like to take that torch and run with it a little bit further to make sure that we're seen as a viable place for these major companies to relocate to.
Great. Where can our viewers go to learn more about your campaign?
So 2 locations. My website is votegodwin.com. That's Godwin. And then you can also check me out on my Facebook page where I'm pretty active about posting what my views are, what I hope to accomplish. And that's Godwin for Tampa. So facebook.com/Godwin for Tampa.
Great. Well, on behalf of our 1,400 members, our board of directors, thanks for joining us, and thanks for your willingness to serve in elected capacity. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.